Recommendations from 2016 Community Consultations with LGBTQ2 community members and ally service providers on how to make Hamilton an LGBTQ2 positive city to work, live, learn and play. From the Spice Factory at 121 Hughson St North on Tuesday, June 28, 2016.
And employers of community, and what actions they are going to take in response to those recommendations. When I look at the list of leaders who will be speaking tonight, I'm struck by the fact that not only is the mayor here, but four of the organizations are faith-based in the Catholic tradition, my own background. And I think this is remarkable as it is so important for every institution. Having said that, it is important that each and every organization can speak out. And we're glad to have so many here tonight, from the municipality to social services to labor and business and healthcare and education.
Yes, we are.
I'm also supposed to mention that there's buttons. There's really cute buttons that you guys can get. I think they're at the front. I think that's the buttons. I'm going to get all of the buttons. Okay. I'm also pleased to announce that an ally business supported the cost of this report launched tonight with a donation for the recent Queer Positive event they had. Pretty Grit, owned by business partners Amy and Amanda, wanted to support the LGBTQ community in some way and choose to support research and findings that will lead to greater resources for our community and communities. Thank you, Teacher Director. So now I'm going to introduce Deirdre Pike and Jennifer Rollings. Deirdre Pike is a senior social planner who conducted the first needs assessment for the LGBTQ community back in 2006 in partnership with the Hamilton Pride Festival, which resulted in the report creating LGBTQ positive cities in Hamilton. For this new report, Hamilton LGBTQ Speak Out, Deirdre worked with the community advisor team that assisted in the coordination of the 5 consultations in February and March. It included Carla Klassen, Anna Irving, Jessica Ward, David DeSilva, Violet Nichols, Tim Clement, James Deemert, and Melanie Tankhouse. Thank you for time and energy in bringing those meetings together. Jennifer always is just finishing her master's in social work at York University and placements student at SPRC, who did the important work with Deirdre and the committee to pull the findings from each of these meetings together and do trends analysis to develop key findings, ultimately these solid recommendations to improve life for LGBTQ. So now I'm opening Deirdre and Jennifer.
So I just wanted to also acknowledge on our committee with Brianna Smith and Karen Patterson, adding those to our committees together.
Thank you very much, and I'm very pleased that so many people wanted to come out tonight and well, come out. I wish you would all come out. I always assume that everybody in the room is queer because it makes me, more at ease and relaxed to deal with everything else. So if anybody is here as a straight ally, thank you very much. And you should find safety if you wanted to come out later. This is a really great opportunity to feed back to you through the course of these recommendations. What we've heard, we spoke to up to about 150 people in the community over the course of 5 different meetings that I'm going to tell you about. In those consultations, because when we did this work 10 years ago, we had groups with, focus groups with lesbians, bisexual, gay men, trans people, older adults, youth, students. We had about 8 different focus groups. This time we didn't have that kind of robust funding behind us at this time to do as much, and so we were limited to these 5 groups. We did, and instead of just focus groups like we did the first time around, we actually made these open public meetings with trying to get as many people as possible there, and so that everybody's voices heard. And so we, on our committee, we discussed who we would have these conversations with this time. We thought we should prioritize the trans community, older adults. We went with 55 and older, so I'm not quite there. I'm pleased that they did it on 55. 53, I might have had to participate differently. And then we went with youth, and we said 12-ish to 35-ish, because we wanted to make sure that there was a range there. And parents of LGBTQ people and parents who are themselves LGBTQ, and we did that in partnership with a study. They were doing a room years report, or the way the committee was structured in the city, and so through that work, we ended up adding this extra issue of possible parents or parents. And then we done one session because we know that this is certainly not the end of our myriad of identities in terms of sexual orientation or gender identity, and nor does it cover the many intersections that we certainly need at least 147 community consultations. We really try and get this as accurate as possible. So this is who we spoke to. We did that in February and March. We were happy that Good Shepherd was kind enough to give us space for free, good community space. They also have a really great coffee making service. Dr. Kalinowski was running around making coffee for us every night and providing dessert, and that's what assistant executive director should do, I think, is make coffee. So in each of those evenings, they looked the same those evenings, except for the participants would change, and in fact some participants went to 2 or 3 of those, because you could see how you could be part of the trans community, and you could be over 55, and then you might come back to that general session and be able to talk about something else. And so the faces may have changed, but the process that we used was pretty much standard. And I just want to tell you, I've told you some of the limitations already about the methodology, and I'll tell you some of the variances in that methodology. And so each night the intention was that there were guest speakers related to the particular demographic we were speaking with. And so on the evening of the trans night, we had Susan Gapka, who was here, a leader in trans rights across Ontario and really Canada, and set the tone for what's happening in the trans community and what direction we should be able to head. And then after a speaker about whichever particular demographic we were with that evening, we did a banner exercise, and you can see at the back there, there is a rainbow banner wrapped around the bar. It starts at the early corner, where it's almost falling down. It goes from this lovely rainbow, got my heart for me by the way, the rainbow around the corner is wrapped more in gray colors. And say, this isn't the happiest rainbow. And then the same is reported, there's a band the same kind of way with the trans flag, and it's all bright pink and blue, and then it fades out into gray. And what we did, we started these sessions, we asked people want to read notes, sticky notes, to put one idea per note, and then here's the questions for survivors. What are the best things that we have done for LGBTQ? And where are we missing? What needs to happen to the gaps here to make this work out? And so I'll really, of course, on the rainbow side, or the gray trans side, and all the things that are missing on the lackluster side. And all of that was really was taken from that. And then after that particular exercise, we moved into tabletop conversations. And so those conversations had been between board and people. And each session, again, was the same. We talked about answering the questions. What makes Hamilton the best place for queer trans people when it comes to the lake? And what makes it So we did that. We got into the 6 topics. What's really great is we're when it comes to healthcare. What's really great about being LGBTQ+ when it comes to education? What is really missing around social supports? What's really lacking for you queer transgender recreation or housing? And so each of those 6 favorite topics were explored with facilitators. With the changes that we made for the trans night, we ensured that trans facilitators and there were some queer identified reporters, but for the most part they were trans people in the community to make it really as safe and accessible for the trans community as possible, and to limit therefore the number of cisgender people. In fact, down the hall we had the service providers, ally service providers, and cisgender allies of the community met to answer the same questions, because sometimes you can see things from the outside, and those of us also can provide some light into what has to be happening. And so those are the 3 things that happened. And then you can imagine after 5 meetings, and each meeting, let's say average, well, we do the math there. 30 times 5 is 150. So it would average about 30 people a meeting, and then imagine all the sticky notes related to that exercise. And then all the table talks, and at some of those sessions, people could move around in the table, so they would finish housing for queer people, and then, okay, time's up, move to another table, or somebody would just say, okay, that's all I know about housing, I really want to talk about recreation. So that was sort of the flow of that. How many people, if you don't mind showing, if you were there and participated in that, in one of the sessions? How many of you? Yeah. Am I reflecting that accurately? Is that your experience? Anybody want to add anything? That's good. So that's kind of how that happened. And then, and every night we enjoyed food in the steel lounge, and that was really great. That came before the dessert and the coffee, so it's really quite nice. And we should support our good queer businesses. So super. And I think what we're going to do now is actually just do a quick review of the recommendations in the report. Please feel free to follow along if you like. I just thought it was really necessary to highlight some of the key issues that Jennifer is going to come over here. And Jennifer happened to be doing a placement at the SBRC at the same time as all of this was happening, and she just did an amazing job. Really as an ally assisting in the rollout of these teachings and the rollout of the data, and in helping us sort through the findings to adopt these recommendations that we have to use. So what's going to happen is Jennifer's going to present those to you now. I'm going to come back up for a minute after that, and then the speakers that we have tonight, Chris is going to come back up and start. We're going to start hearing from community from our these particular recommendations in ways that are solved and are going to show some good action for you. So, Jennifer, tell us all about it.
Thank you. So, if you're following along in your report, you just had the very first one that was up to was the report of this is actually in the Spectator yesterday. So, if you had a chance to look at the Spectator, they featured this and really shone a light on this. I think advice to those of you who were there and beyond. So this was clear. Every group that we met with, they identified a designated space that they know is very universal or aspects that we need to open up So not just this one space, but how can we make more spaces? So we talked about that in our work. So we have made some recommendations in what any organization can start doing to be more welcoming and inclusive for LGBTQ. Basically, it's going to start with an assessment of what's going on right now and identifying maybe what's going well and some areas for improvement. So a couple ideas that came out of these sessions were the demand for gender-neutral washrooms. I'm hearing about this a lot recently, and the demand is very clear that this signals to people that spaces are inclusive and that people are there, no matter how they are. In terms of training and education, this is where we learned that the positive space training that exists has been pretty good and making some changes throughout the city and making staff, businesses more accessible and inclusive for people. And people wanted to see more of that and wanted more training and to expand it to more locations and to also have the content of the training expand. So to see topics include information about trans identities and more so that kind of stuff. They also wanted to see training for post-secondary students have topics that are relevant to the LGBTQ population and really speak to what people working with the public and community need to know so that they're informed ahead of time and responsive to questions.
I just want to make it up for the last part of really about staff and training and schools is that what you don't see in the report, but I added here just on this slide, is a reminder that EGAL, the Human Rights Organization of Canada around queer trans stuff, did a school safety climate survey about 4 years or so ago, and they found that 26 times a day in secondary schools across Canada are homophobic and transphobic slurs heard. But only 3% of the time are those slurs interrupted by faculty or staff. And that's what really needs to change, and that's what that recommendation is trying to address, is that the training is essential. I hear over and over again from teachers, I hear them say it, I don't know how to interrupt it. So somebody's got to respond to that demand for that.
Absolutely, and I think in the post-secondary topic, the need for positive space groups also came up over and over that students needed to know that there was a safe place they could come for that support and wanted the folks, the staff who were running it to be supportive and knowledgeable and able to talk about as they're dealing with identity, trying to figure out who they are. Alright, so in our physical session of all services, the need for counseling is clear. Again, across the board, people identified that there is long wait times for counseling and just not enough services in general, and certainly not LGBTQ specific counseling services. So by identifying this as a recommendation that this should be available for folks and accessible as well. So in terms of financially accessible throughout the city, and available in multiple languages. Something that also came out of this, especially because it's both affordable, is that they wanted services for people who are aging to be responsive to the needs of LGBTQ. So that whether they're in a long-term care facility or aging at home, however they interact with the services, they should be able to receive respectful and responsive services. Under safety and visibility, there were lots of ideas that came out about how we could raise safety and visibility for queer trans people.
flags are not enough. And so while we talk about marking significant days, it's important that there are not stickers slapped up saying this is a safe space when indeed the work behind the scenes has not been done, or flags are raised when we're not paying attention to the human rights issues that are being ignored in different places. And so that's why we heard that, I think, repeatedly in terms of a concern there. And on the last point, we were talking about accessibility. I wanted to say that through an error, no one but mine, you are looking at a report that doesn't meet the standard of accessibility and visibility. The font is too small, and I'll be making sure that that's taken care of online, of course, we can zoom in, but that's exactly an example of how organizations, in this case it was my particular thing, but organizations need to be attentive to these things all the time. Because here I am telling you about how to make your community more accessible when you report against students. So, I'd like to say I did that just as a lesson for you what they were. It's a right lesson for you.
So our sixth category that we identified was research and community. So we heard lots of different folks that they really appreciated being able to come out to these sessions and have the opportunity to speak out. That was valuable for them, and they wanted more. They wanted this to be an ongoing project. They wanted all of these different leaders and reviewers actually to be available for them to come to and share their experiences and their thoughts. So they want more research. This is something that we're doing. So we're making recommendations for more research. And hopefully looking for some funding that would back that and will recognize the importance of research. Through this research, we are also hoping to do an asset map of the community that could potentially lead to the coordination of online websites, physical resources for people, so that again there's that infrastructure available for services, for information, for the LGBTQ. And we also spoke about archiving. In your report, there is a long history of LGBTQ activism, change in Hamilton. People wanted a place to come learn about that and to connect with others around that and move forward. And so I think that's the spirit of all of our recommendations, is this idea of moving forward. We have all this information now. What can we do? So I'll pass it back to Deirdre. Thank you.
I think you're now officially done replacing. Very great. The archive project was particularly interesting. That has come up a number of times over the years, and again, these were the voices of people identifying these as priorities, not Jennifer sitting in the office. When I sent it out for feedback from different committee members and other committee members, I said, "Oh, I'd really like to see something in there about so-and-so, such and such an issue." Well, that could be in there if somebody actually said it at the community consultation. But these are the voices of those 150 people who participated, and that's their recommendations. And so I think it's afterwards.
Thank you both. And Deirdre, if you want your report to be able to compliant next year, of course I do. It's like your bag now.
Yeah, you have a business.
I do have a
Yeah.
business. It's a clear business and you can use it.
Good. Mr. Hose, show the Jess. We can't hear you, brother.
Oh, you can hear me?
Not one bit.
Educated. Street friends. Which is fine. Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to introduce our first organizational leaders tonight to speak to their commitment and their organization's commitment to the recommendations in this report They have been asked to keep their comments 3 to 4 minutes and are reflecting on the question, what have you learned from listening to the voices of LGBTQ plus people that will impact the direction and velocity of your organization's commitment to making Hamilton an inclusive and safe space for the LGBTQ plus people to live, work, or play? That's a great question to answer. The first person I'm going to bring up is a friend and a wonderful ally to the LGBTQ plus community, and that is Mayor Fred.
Thank you very much, Christopher, and thank you. I'm happy to be here today to witness a great report, great idea about how we're going to move forward as a community. Ironically, just an hour and a half ago, I was sitting with a bunch of youth talking about actually pretty much the same issues. I think the residents from that exercise and what we're here today pretty much the same. Looking for a safe space in our community, looking for inclusion in every way possible, making sure that there's an allowance for spaces where they can actually come together and feel comfortable and safe and express the need in their lives, their young lives, to move forward. I think that's the very same issue that we're hearing today and have heard for some time before, but I think haven't heard it expressed as a concise report in terms of the needs that are evident in our community. So I'm not going to go through every recommendation here because there's a lot there, but to say that we understand the need for a safe space in our community, we understand that there are people in this community that are looking who are to the LGBTQ community. That is something we have to guard against. In fact, we see that on the community, we have to make sure it's based on the services and it's certainly something that we are mindful of as we work through our policing responsibilities in terms of policy and how we reflect that in terms of policing policy and make sure that those respects are in place as well. So it's a pretty large, broad issue, but I think there's much that we have done, but much more that we have to do. Much more of what we need to do is certainly changing attitudes of people in our community. I think that's one of the largest issues that we face. People that are still not accepting the notion that there are differences in our sexual orientations, and that those differences ought to be respected and not discriminated against. So the opportunity no matter who you are, no matter who you are, to be able to follow a great safe path in our society. So that's certainly a commitment that I have, and a commitment that I continue to follow through on. How we do that, so I think it'd be worthy of us to look at setting up some sort of a format to work through some of these issues with our staff. And we have great staff in the city of Hamilton that are all very mindful of the issue of inclusion for all people. We have a division in our city of anti-racist and inclusion that works on those very issues, not only internally in the city of Hamilton, but throughout the city and all of our resources and facilities. So, and it's all going up. So how do we continue to grow that level of acceptance and inclusion that provides the respect and the resources that are needed like the LGBT community and all people in fact. So it's certainly specific to LGBT today, but it needs to be inclusion for anyone, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from. Whether you're a neighbor, whether you're born here, not born here, whether you're gay or not gay, it doesn't matter. How do we include everyone to give them an opportunity to have respect for this society? So I'm very happy to see the report, and I'll commit to you that we will look for a process where we can actually come together, bring some staff together, bring some community, and start fashioning some direction on how we can move forward. One thing we haven't done today as a community, and this is something we talked about with our youth engagement process, we tend not to, as a city, set up individual spaces for individuals in our facility or rec centers. That hasn't been our practice, but it doesn't mean that can't start for your need. And I think we were talking about that with our youth in terms of setting up safe spaces where they can actually interact with one another, and then be able to find that mentoring zone that they can then start to reestablish their lives in. And I think start thinking on the same kind of idea of some solid resource bases on doing that. But it's not an easy sell in terms of how we move forward on this, because it's not something that we've done in the past in terms of individual groups or sectors of our society. But I think there's a need here. I think the need needs to be addressed. Certainly would agree that we can start working towards finding some opportunity to actually go on that. So, without having to go through each one of these recommendations, there are many, I commit to you today that we will set up a process to work through these and see where we can come up with some positive recommendations that we actually go through. One of the easier ones that we dealt with this, at the city panel just recently is trans bathroom facility. That's an issue that was mentioned in the papers. That's something that we now are more than aware of as there's a need of non-discriminatory open bathrooms for all our facilities. So it's a matter of making sure